It's a pleasure to be here tonight with all of you. And we have managed to figure out the technical wizardry here. We are running a hybrid meeting as well, so we've got a number of folks joining us online. Thank you to everyone here joining us at the forum at Loma Prieta School. And I have with me tonight a couple of special guests from the county. Our road maintenance Assistant Director of Public Works, Steve Wiesner. See if you could just wave. And our Director of Response, Recovery, and Resilience, Dave Reed. This is a three-part presentation tonight. We each have some slides to share with you. And I think because it's such a big group, we'll save questions till the end. So I'll just jump right in because we've got lots of material to share. Well, first of all, I'm glad the power's on. I made sure it was on right before I arrived here. No, but actually, I guess this is just highlight some of the issues that my office has with PG&E as well. The last update I got from them was at 1 p.m. When they told us that, as far as they knew, the outage was caused by the enhanced power line safety settings, the EPSS stuff that can be triggered randomly. The initial outage affected 2,400 people. They reduced it to 1,400 people, and I think we're entirely back on now. And they said they were flying the line with a helicopter and had foot patrols inspections, but that is about as much as I knew. So ultimately, I think we're going to have to work with this California Public Utilities Commission to better regulate PG&E and ensure that they're doing their part to keep the power on. Of course, one of the big problems with the power going out is that then the internet goes out. Heard about that a lot during the storms last year, and that's why it's been a big focus of my office really since the weather started clearing up here, or even before, to start getting more of the Comcast stations online with backup power, 72 hours of backup power, so that they won't go off, that you'll still have internet even when PG&E is out like this. I'm proud to say that out of the 16 sites that are just here in District 1, which is kind of our central part of the Santa Cruz Mountains, 14 out of 16 sites have been issued permits to install backup power. Another 2 are in process. And countywide for Comcast, about half of all the sites, 66 out of 115, have actually installed that backup power. So we're not at 100% yet, but we are making progress. There's a 50% chance that you'll have your internet on, even if you didn't last winter. I'll keep hammering on them as well to make sure they get as many of these sites installed as quickly as possible. Some of you may have heard or have been watching excitedly as the Summit Shaded Fuel Break continues to progress and get completed towards Highway 17 this year. Excited to share that CAL FIRE did approve close to $1 million for a shaded fuel break basically on SoCal San Jose Road as well. Talked to a lot of you. I completely understand that that is basically a local road, one of the only ways in and out. And we feel the same. It's very important to have that be as safe as possible in a disaster. And so the basically $1 million CAL FIRE grant will help us perform a lot of the same work on SoCal San Jose that you're seeing now on Summit. The funding ultimately comes from the state through the Cap and Trade program. There's, if you were involved in the Summit Shaded Fuel Break, there are a lot of steps to actually get this ready to go. We've got to work with all the private property owners to get their permission. We've got to work with a forester to make sure that the environmental impacts are properly mitigated. And then ultimately, we've actually got to contract someone to do the work of clearing around the road itself. So our current estimate is that the work for SoCal San Jose will start in 2025. And also big thanks to Dave Reed and the OR3 office. Within his office is Patty Siesla. She's the grant writer for the Fire Safe Council. And so they really spearheaded this effort in a lot of ways to get this next grant. I also want you to make you aware of the county's local road safety plan that we're drafting now. I heard from a number of you in advance of this meeting that speeding on Summit Road was a concern. And of course, the safety impacts as a result of that. So what this plan will do, what you're seeing here on the map is just a portion of our county. It shows all the collisions that have occurred since January 2018 to December 2022. It's a lot, and the dots indicate the severity of the accident. But this is really meant to be a participatory process. So you can go to SantaCruzCountySafeStreets.com and report an area of concern that you've seen. And ultimately, we're going to take all that information, create the local road safety plan, and that'll help us prioritize which sites we ultimately request state funding for, and go out and make some improvements on. And of course, your input as well will help us determine what kind of improvements to make in those different locations. All right, now, so Steve Wiesner is going to give a very specific talk about what's going on with county roads, the work that they've done this year to respond to some of the storm damage and prepare for the upcoming winter. But I think this is the most common outreach I get to my office is about roads and why they're not in a better condition. So I want to just give you a very general overview of how we got to the place we are today, and that's some context then for Director Wiesner's talk. So overall, our county has 600 miles of county roads. It's a lot. It's enough to get all the way up to Canada, and it's a lot to maintain. We have what's called the Pavement Condition Index, or PCI. That's how we measure the condition of the roads. As you'll not be surprised to learn, the average condition of our county roads is poor. Just from at risk, we've eked into poor. This is a picture of a road here. It's about, I don't know, if I had to guess, PCI of about 17, so pretty well failed. So it's not that bad all over the place, but we do recognize that we have a significant problem. And it's not just the roads itself, there's also the culverts that go under the roads, right? And as you can see, a lot of them, well, it's not the greatest picture, but they're starting to get rotted out there. The metal itself is at risk of failure. So we want to really address both the problems. And just like maintenance for your house, where it's a lot cheaper to apply a coat of paint early rather than replace all the siding, it's really the same for the county roads. And so this graph you can see here, basically as the PCI declines, it becomes more expensive to get the road back to 100%. So I'll read the numbers since I'm sure you can't read them. But so if the road is still in good condition, you can get it back to 100% for just about $140,000 per mile. If it's at risk, it costs $352,000 per mile. If it's in poor condition, which as I said, most of our roads are today, it's about $500,000 per mile. But then if you have to completely reconstruct the road, it costs $1 million per mile. So we really want to do something about the roads sooner rather than later. But what I've learned now in the last 2 3/4 years of being in office is that we're faced with some pretty significant challenges on how we fund the roads. And of course, that everyone always says, I'm sure many of you have asked me this, is why aren't my roads in better shape? I'm paying you tons of money in property taxes. The answer is, I wish I was getting it all. So what you see here on the graph is that actually the county general fund, it's that kind of light blue slice, gets just about 13% of the property taxes you pay, 13.5 cents to be precise. As you can see, the majority does go to schools. Sounds like a good thing, it is. But in other counties, so I should say, so we get 13.5 cents here in Santa Cruz County. The statewide average is 20% goes to the county. That difference is about $70 million a year. And really that's the money that we could use to be fixing the roads. With the schools portion, it's great that we fund schools. In other counties where the county infrastructure gets more money, the state will basically come in and backfill the schools to make sure that they get enough money. So we're funding the schools directly. If we were funding county infrastructure more and schools less, the state would largely make sure that the schools remain whole. And so through this funding formula, we are missing out on a lot of effectively state funding. The formula for this was set after Prop 13 passed, right? That many of us enjoy. Keeps our property taxes pegged at about 1% of total value and only can increase 2% a year. And the state basically, the legislature created this formula after Prop 13 passed of everyone getting this amount in order to manage some of the reductions in overall property taxes that we saw at that time. So this formula is set by the state. Only the state legislature can change it. unless we change it through a state ballot initiative. And you can see the total effect that some of the different rates and property tax going back to the county have when you look at some of our neighbors. This is actually then extrapolating out the property taxes that come back to unincorporated residents. So Santa Clara County is way up high here at $10,000 per unincorporated resident. And that's because only 6% of their population lives in the unincorporated area. For us, it's about 50%. So we have less money to begin with, and then we have more people relying on county services. And that's why our roads are in terrible condition. And of course, the other question that comes up all the time is, well, why don't you go get it from somewhere else in the county? The problem is that pretty much all other divisions, departments, parts of the county look like our roads effectively. Very thin on budget. We have a lot of vacancies because we can't pay as much as some of these other counties. And so as a result, some people would rather to go take a county job in Santa Clara as a planner or civil engineer or a correctional officer or mental health clinician. They're getting paid more in Santa Clara. Why would they do it in Santa Cruz? So we're thin all over the place. And if we, just like a poor family, you can't take money out of, the food budget and spend it on rent. You're still just as bad off. Meanwhile, basically we should be putting $24 million a year into our road network just to hold even. And on a good year, we're putting in $8 million a year. So my first year in office, I told you I care about county roads. I do. Working with Steve Wiesner, we really advocated as much as possible to get the biggest share of some of the gas tax money and federal road money that comes into our county allocated to county roads. We had a high watermark year and got $12 million allocated. So that's great, but, and you will see SoCal San Jose repaved up to Laurel Glen in 2025, when that money finally arrives. So it's great, but it's clearly not solving the fundamental issue. We've got to reverse the trend. So I've been told over the last nearly 3 years that it's impossible to change the state formula. But frankly, I don't see any other way at this point to keep our road network in place and to improve actually overall our quality of services in the county. That's why I worked with Chair Friend and authored a resolution that we passed at our last board meeting just last week, saying to our state representatives, look, the current property tax apportionment law of the state of California is inadequate and unsustainable for the county of Santa Cruz. Oh, great. Please stand by. Let's see. We'll come back. Okay, great. The current property tax apportionment law of the state of California is inadequate and unsustainable for our county. And we're requesting that our state representatives do everything possible to change it. So our state representatives are Senator John Laird, Assemblymember Gail Pellerin. It kind of depends on where exactly, but Assemblymember Gail Pellerin, now Speaker of the House, Robert Rivas, and Assemblymember Don Addis. Between having a speaker in the state assembly and having a really senior member in the state senate like John Laird, this is probably the best opportunity we're going to have as far as folks who can advocate on our behalf in Sacramento. We've got to try and change this. We've got to do more than try. We've got to succeed. If you want to participate, I'm reaching out now that we have this resolution to schedule meetings with our state representatives. You can sign the petition as well that says this needs to change. You see the problem. You can go to bit.ly/fix-scc-roads and sign the petition. And ultimately, we just need as much leverage as we possible to tell our state representatives that this is a problem. It's totally possible they won't act immediately. It might even take threatening a statewide ballot initiative. I'm not kidding. But if you look at all the counties that make less than the average, there's actually a majority of the state population living in them. a lot of Southern California communities, like Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego County, Fresno County. All those counties make less than the statewide average. And so working together, we could affect the action that we need. So that's the fun background on county roads. Now I'm going to invite Steve Wiesner up to talk about the specifics of what our department is doing despite these funding challenges and to prepare for this coming winter. And, let me just, I don't want to open it up just yet. Let's just go ahead and get through all the presentations and then we'll do questions at the end. Plus I got to manage to bring up Steve's presentation here. That it's working. It's great. Okay. All right. Just hit the next button and
okay, fantastic.
you're good.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Supervisor Koenig. And thanks everyone for having me here. It's good to see everyone. See a few familiar faces. You know, I'm just going to start by saying, you know, if you've been through a winter like what we just had this last year, and that's not the first one, of course, that was a bad one though, for sure. You know, we recognize in the road department how critical our road system is for our safety, you know, for mobility, for our economy, really to get services to and from your homes and your businesses and to get our kids to and from school and for us to get to and from work. And so it's really paramount. We get it in the road department, how important it is to keep our roads together. And I would say the mid part of this, our county, like sort of between Highway 17 and let's say SoCal San Jose, or even if you creep on over one watershed over to like Eureka Canyon, you know, that area of the county gets hit really, really hard when we get these types of systems come through, when these atmospheric rivers, you know, park and they fire hose. I mean, it could be, you know, Boulder Creek, the San Lorenzo Valley certainly gets its share too as well. But the geology in this area, you know, especially really between 17 and SoCal San Jose, like, you know, Redwood Lodge Road and the Laurel area, you know, we know it's really fragile, and we get how bad the roads are, and we get how important it is to keep the system together, especially in light of the type of winters that we've seen. So I just wanted to kind of preface my talk with that. Today, really what I'm going to focus on is some of the maintenance activities that our crews have been up to this summer. And I'm really focusing on this area of the county. But keeping in mind, we have 600 miles, as Supervisor Koenig said, throughout the entire reaches of our county, all the way from Watsonville, right, up to the summit, all the way up to Boulder Creek, and then all the way to San Mateo County, right? And so it's a huge, vast area. You know, and we've got basically 3 road crews, you know, our south, middle, and north that take care of all these areas. And, you know, the road crew's fairly limited in the amount of staff that they have, but they're out there and they're doing stuff. And we've got equipment staged all over the county. And those of you who are familiar with this area know we have stuff up at Burrell, you know, so that we can respond even when we can't get, you know, like our big equipment up SoCal San Jose Road. So I'm going to touch a little bit on what the crew's been up to, a little bit of what happened in this last winter, and then just for a larger context, some of the other storm events that we've been through here in the last few years. So what the crew's been up to, and I will say that in about the last 5 years, we've really been focused on maintenance, and we've really been focused on, and what maintenance to us is keeping our ditch lines open, keeping our culverts open, knowing which culverts are actually failing and getting them replaced as soon as we can. And doing all the mowing and vegetation control as much as we possibly can to keep the right of way clear of debris. And so if you live on or near any of these roads, chances are you saw quite a bit of work going on. And I won't name them all, but again, I tried to focus in on roads that are in this area because I knew this could be the audience we'd have tonight. And so that's the ditching. They tend to mow and ditch the same roads in the same years, right? Because it kind of goes hand in hand, right? We mow, it creates a lot of debris, then we come back through and we ditch. And so those two operations go really well together. And so you'll see here sort of all the other roads that we've been doing vegetation work on as well. And so again, chances are if you live in any of these areas, you saw the crews out there this summer. And then we do have a limited program to focus in on our overhead tree work. We don't have a tree crew. Most of the work that we do tree work is contracted out, with, you know, companies like Lewis or Community Tree Service and so forth.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I live off of Highland Way, and when I was talking to the people who were repairing, they said they ran out of any material to finish Highland Way, so that never took place, so I don't know what that's up there.
This is tree trimming?
No, tree trimming, they haven't reached Highland Way yet.
Oh, and then the pavement maintenance.
Haven't completed it.
So yeah, no, they're still working on it, but this is, so we did a lot of work on SoCal San Jose this summer too. I don't know if you saw that, but Highland Way got some patching this work this year. I mean, we've got several storm damage repairs, which I'm going to go over as well.
Yeah. Whoever's giving you that information.
Okay. All right, well, so,
I photographed my phone.
okay, I'll note it. I mean, all right. I've been on Highland Way this summer several times and I know it's really bad. I know the pothole situation out there is pretty bad. And it's getting worse. No, I know. And okay, I'll note that to the crews. It ended up on here from my crews. And so I assume they hit some of it. Okay, fair. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about storm damage repair. Okay. And so this just to give you guys a little bit of context about how busy we've been and how much damage we've actually incurred over the last couple storm seasons from 2017 on through into 23. So, I mean, these are some big numbers, right? So you live on Highland Way, you see all those storm repairs we've done. You know, we've probably put more money into Highland Way. Pardon me? Yep. There's several, if you drive all of Highland Way, you're going to see at least three. Yeah, you're going to see at least 3 projects active right now. Yeah. It's these guys are all, these contractors that have those sites up there are working on multiple sites throughout the entire county. And so, and some of the applications that we're doing up there, the material supplies has been really difficult. So, but it's going, and I know I've seen at least 3 of them going pretty hard. So and we're working on stuff from 2017 still, right? So, and I will say about Highland Way, I mean, if you look at the amount of repairs we've done in the last 10, 12 years up there, it's probably more per capita on Highland Way than almost any other road in the entire county. Well, so I wouldn't.
We do want to take
yeah,
questions and
yeah.
comments, but just the online audience won't be able to hear you. And so in order to help everyone track, if you don't mind, we'll take
That's fair.
Take one comment at a time.
Yeah, that's fair. And we'll take a note.
At the end.
Yep. And even afterwards, I'll stick around if you guys have specific things you want to talk about. But just for context, right? So each one of those little projects you see, say up on Highland Way, or some of the projects you've seen us do on SoCal San Jose Road this summer. In 2017, we had over 200 of those. We had 220 of those. And we're still repairing those projects. And some of the ones that were still waiting actually got worse this winter. But we're getting close to being done with the 2017 sites, right? And that's right on, of course, on the heels of this 2023 winter that we had, which we got another over 200 of those sites. Now, just think about each one of those sites that we're working on at a snail's pace, by the way. We got over 200, we got over 400 of those sites just since 2017. It's a huge amount of work for the road crew to undertake. This is monumental. It's been like an all hands on deck situation for my entire road design team, just putting these projects out. And what I'll tell you is, so in 2023, we're going a lot faster, right? So of the 220 sites that we got this year, we have completed over 30 and we're in construction on another 40. We're in construction today on another 40. And what I'll say is we're either in construction or we're right on embarking upon starting those projects. And one of those projects is Stetson. I'm sure some of you guys are here from Stetson. Stetson's one of the few roads that's totally closed still today from this past winter. So that project at Post Mile 0.18, we actually have an engineer working on that project and we're expecting to start construction within 2 weeks. So that's, that and Redwood Lodge Road, I think, are the 2 other roads that are the other road that's totally closed. That's another project we're actually starting as we speak, actually. So this is just for a little bit of context on how busy we've been, but I'll kind of run through these. So these are sites just up in this area, right? And like I said, we've completed over 30 just in the entire county, but up in this area. So these are projects that basically we're either in construction on or we've completed. And so the ones that you see up on Highland that haven't been completed yet are up there as well. But the SoCal San Jose ones, I think most of those got done this summer. And then here's another handful that are actually just getting ready to start construction. Now, of course, this is all weather dependent, right? We're facing, rains, but we're going to keep going as long as we can. And when things get real bad, we'll obviously have to shut these sites down till the spring. But these are projects that we're getting ready to do. And I just wanted to kind of, yeah, so these are post miles. And so the way for you, if you drive the roads in the county, you'll see we have little white paddles on the side of the road. Where there's culverts, there'll be a number on those. And those are post miles. And they usually kind of start from 0 down in the county and they'll run up to like SoCal San Jose will go up to like 10 or something, right? So those are post miles. And so we're trying to tag where we think exactly where that site is based on post mile, because a lot of times there's not really an address right there. So the Stetson 0.18, that's the one that actually we're getting ready to start in a couple weeks on. And I think that's a picture of it right there. You guys recognize that? And so, I mean, if you look really between those projects and these projects, we've been pretty busy this summer. Okay, so this is just kind of to give you, because 17 was a pretty bad year too, right? And so just to give you again a little bit more context about how many other sites, look at Highland Way. Look at how many other sites we have had to work on since 2017. Highland Way, I'll say, the geology on Highland Way is terrible. The road is built like not on a good geologic base. And it's like, 10 engineers' lifetimes to keep Highland Way going. But I will say, and somebody said it has a lot of traffic. If you look actually at the average daily traffic, it doesn't really have a really high volume of traffic. We do know we've got the mountain bikers going to Demo Forest. And when that's active, that does seem very busy. But from just an average daily travel, if you look at all the roads around the county, it's actually a very low volume road. But we recognize how important it is for connectivity, right? It's what gets you across the ridge there and down into the Rica Canyon area. And so we spend a lot of time trying to keep Highland Way together, even in its current state of repair or disrepair, if you will. But I just soaked that in. That's all the projects. And each one of those numbers represents an individual storm repair project. So it's quite a bit of work. And then these are also projects that we have left to do between the 2017, and we did have a little bit of damage in 2021. For those of you who remember, we had kind of an early winter storm that really kind of hammered us pretty hard. Okay, so with that, we're gonna save questions, right? But it's just really to give you an idea with the activity that the road department's been up to, but I think it's a good idea to save questions till the end. Yeah, okay.
All right, now Dave Reed, if you could come up, we'll do an overview. Oh, there you are. Great. All right. This is Dave Reed, our Director of the Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience.
Thanks, everybody. Given that we've been talking at you and want to have questions, I'll try and go through this as quickly as I can. Bear in mind, I come from a geology and climate science background, so I'm going to wax a little bit philosophical on the why preparedness is important this winter, despite what we already know is forecasted to be a strong El Nino. But I want to highlight a couple things for all of you as well. The county has embarked upon an update to our emergency operations plan. So we welcome your feedback. It's out for public comment right now. If you go to the OR3 website, you can take a look at that document. There's a link right on there to provide feedback. We worked with the consultant team very quickly. We were selected by Cal OES. There's a state law now that they have to review all emergency operations plans. Unfortunately, they asked me in January if they could review ours, and I was a little busy in January, if you all recall. So we have till November 15th to submit that. We've been in an update process, but welcome your feedback on that document on our website. So I want to talk a little bit about the El Nino forecasting right now, because
Keep talking if you want.
because it's important to contextualize. Many of you have probably lived through many El Ninos. we are forecasting a strong El Nino, but what we don't know is whether it's going to be a 2017 El Nino, whether it's going to be a 2023 El Nino. And so it's important for us to be prepared in listening to each other and our National Weather Service partners. So this is a graph just showing all of the El Ninos all the way back into the 50s. And these are just El Ninos, weak El Ninos, moderate El Ninos, strong El Ninos. You can see 97, 98 on that top bar. Basically, the graph is describing the amount of precipitation relative to normal. So the deeper greens is a wet El Nino year. So we had wet El Ninos in 97, 98, but we also had dry El Ninos in the 60s and even in 2015, 2016. Even though it was forecasted to be a strong El Nino, the weather precipitation patterns didn't materialize. This is just the number of atmospheric rivers that hit California in 2023, this year, right? In 2022, we had one atmospheric river hit California. So we all know we lived through it this winter. We had a lot of them. But where they hit, the orientation of them, both statewide, West Coast wide, but also between North, Mid, and South County has a profound effect on the amount of precipitation that occurs. So this is a graph, hard to see from where you're sitting. The deep blues are 100 plus, 200 plus % of normal rainfall. So most of Santa Cruz was about 200% of normal rainfall, but you can see just north of us in the North Bay, they were right about average rainfall. So even in referencing North Bay, you know, Napa, Sonoma, Marin County to Santa Cruz, not a very big distance, the orientation of those storms, the way the precipitation hits has a profound impact on the volume of water that falls, thereby impacting whether our mountains and roads melt, whether we get flooding in our lowland areas. I know you're not necessarily worried about flooding, but up here on the high ground, but you're worried about your roads melting, as Steve and the supervisor referenced. So I just want to even show rain gauge variability. So this is a rain gauge in Boulder Creek showing just basically the first 3 months of the year. And I circled the two areas where we had our federally declared disasters, January and in February and March. The arrow is where the levee broke. This rain gauge had 68 inches of rain fall at that location. We went from about 10 inches of rain to 68 inches of rain in about 3 months. If you come down to the Corralitos, Southern County rain gauge, still a lot of rain, right? Those two circles, again, the two federally declared disaster windows, but only 52 inches of rain. Still a lot of rain, but fell in a different pattern, and you have a big delta between those two locations. So over a foot of rain difference between those two locations, just North County to Mid County. So it's highly variable as to what will happen. And this is another variation that we saw this past year that I want to articulate. Again, you guys aren't so worried about flooding, but I want to just articulate the complexity of what we're dealing with when we're communicating with you and why we want you to be prepared and know all the ways in which we're going to try and communicate with you. This is what this is showing. The blue bars and the orange bars are rain gauge, rain totals at two rain gauge stations at each storm. So on the far left, it's the New Year's Eve storm, that big first peak. This is the San Lorenzo River flooding event. So the black line is the San Lorenzo River flooding. The first storm on New Year's Eve, you can see the amount of rain that caused the flooding. As our watersheds got more and more saturated, the second peak on January 10th, the second flooding event, higher, more intense flooding, less rain, because the ground got saturated. And then again, we got a flooding event on the 14th of January, and again, even less rain. So one of the things that's important for us to recognize is that how close those atmospheric rivers are will dictate whether we have a flooding event or whether we get a cumulative event and we get a situation like 2017. If everybody remembers 2017, as Steve just said, 220 storm damage sites, we didn't have hardly any evacuations due to flooding. It was just consistent rain, a 7 to 10 day break, another big storm, 5 to 7 day break, and so on. And this is the 2016, 2017 winter storm event rain gauge, again in Boulder Creek. So we got 90 inches of rain that winter at that same rain gauge. The rain gauge I just showed you before, which said 68 this winter. So we got more rain in 2016, 2017 in certain locations in the county. It was just spaced out more. So less of an issue with flooding, more of an issue as I was working with Steve and in this office. You know, we were dealing with the failure on SoCal San Jose and other major road failures. So you are not out of the woods in either scenario, right? You're affected in either scenario in terms of road damage, but how we communicate to you and how you become prepared and are listening is going to be really important. So I want to articulate a couple things. I gave the supervisor this presentation in a PDF form. He can post that. There's going to be some links to the stuff that I'm showing, but I want to share a couple things. We have when your power's on, when your internet is working, we have a great new tool. It's called our Safer Santa Cruz app. It's situational awareness. It's a really neat tool that allows you to see different data sets at the same time. So this is showing weather on one side, rain totals on the other, but you can play with it. There's different presets at the top. I would demo it, but we're trying to get through to questions. It's a great resource to give you information, power outages, and it also has this really cool little rain gauge dial where you can see what the rain, what the stream gauge dial. So it can show you what streams are doing, both how high they are and at what rate of change they are. So a lot of great tools there. I'm happy to talk more about that. The other piece that most of you are probably tracking, right, is our Cruz Aware app. That's our new alert and warning platform that gives the county emergency operations center, our office, the ability to communicate to you as well as our NetCom partners that have done so before. The main thing I want to let everybody know, if you haven't signed up or if you have signed up, you can sign up multiple locations. And please make sure you have a location associated with your account. If you don't, and we notice the summit area because we're practicing, or we notice the summit area because there's a road closure or power outage coming or some other issue, if you don't have your location listed in the account, you're not going to get it. The only way you're going to get a notice is if we let everybody know that something's going on. So make sure your location's in there. The other thing is you can add multiple locations. So for me, I have my home, I have my work, and where my kids go to school. So I'll get a notice if any of those three places is pinged. So for you, it might be your family, your children, your grandchildren, your school, your work. It might be any number of things, but put those in so that you'll get that place-based notification. The other thing that we're working on refining, because I think some of you have probably been woken up at 3 a.m., is the tool allowed National Weather Service notifications. So you could sign up for different National Weather Service notifications. So if the National Weather Service issued a red flag warning and you had that box checked, you'd get an automatic notice. We wouldn't send it. It would automatically be sent out. But the problem was people were getting high heat, fog warnings at 3 in the morning. We're going to scale the number of messages you can get from the National Weather Service down to just the critical life safety ones. So that's thunderstorms, fire weather watch, red flag warning, tsunamis, which you're not too worried about up here, and extreme fire danger. So we're going to focus it on those because really we don't want to wake you up. We don't want to have the National Weather Service. We don't want to have Cruz Aware wake you up to tell you it's going to be foggy or that the Silicon Valley is going to be hot or that you're going to be hot. Generally, you're going to know that. If we're going to have an extreme 110 degrees, low temperatures in the 80s, PSPS stuff, we'll let you know, right? We just don't want you woken up at 3 in the morning. So we're going to scale that down and fine tune that. The last thing I want to talk about is just broad and general preparedness, right? So stormwater management for you on the ridge here, managing your stormwater and not directing it onto our county maintained road network is one of the big things you can do to prepare yourself. So where that water is going on your property, where it's falling from your gutters and downspouts away from your foundations, not onto slopes, are all important things. Clearing your gutters of leaves, so all of those systems work well. Those are some important things to keep in mind. King tides, again, if you work or have business down along the coast, we've got our forecasted king tides around Christmas time and in early January. If you remember, we had the coinciding of king tides and 30-foot swells, and that's what caused the coastal damage. Keeping in mind the county and private road network, right? So as Steve said, they've been out trying to do as much work on the county maintained road network. For those of you who live on private roads, you know what it's like to live on those private roads and them damaged, and you have to out of pocket fix those things. So make sure you've done some of that preventative work, cleaning the ditches, as Steve has been doing and his team has been doing on county maintained roads. Make sure your private roads, your driveway, all of those pieces are prepared as well. Obviously power resilience, I'm speaking and preaching to the choir in terms of that issue. You spent way too many days without power because of PG&E and restoration. We will hopefully not have the same experience, but please make sure you've got all of your devices and you've got backup power and batteries where you can, because you're going to need that undoubtedly this winter again. And then, as I said, the communications piece, Cruz Aware, no weather radios is another tool that we will be using if we need to alert you. And again, usually the no weather radio we would use during like wildfire season, but if there's a big thing that we need to let you know about and you've been without power, we'll use that one as well, because you can get those with battery backup or the little hand crank NPR version of it. And then sandbags, you can find this stuff on the Public Works website. These are a bunch of links that the supervisor can put this presentation up, and you guys can have access to all that stuff. And with that, I think I'll stop.
Great. If you just stay up here, and actually, Director Wiesner, if you want to come back up. Yeah, great job. Oh, we are now happy to take questions about any of the material you heard tonight. Our one request is that you do speak into the mic so that the 39 folks who are with us online can hear your interesting and important question as well. We'll start with
Hi, I live at the intersection of Laurel, Redwood Lodge, and Schultes, and I got to see my name up there, the names up there a lot. Part of the problem is that the map services direct traffic down the roads when it's inappropriate for them to do so. I'm not going to even get into funding or fixing. That just seems like reducing unnecessary traffic on those roads would be something that would be awesome. What can you do to contact like Waze and Google and have us not be a throughway, especially when roads are closed? And I
I know that Steve and I have talked about this over the years, and from an emergency management standpoint, certainly during a disaster, what we do is we work closely with Public Works. Public Works road crews indicate which roads are closed. We get those up. Those become known both internally to our internal emergency operations, but also to external partners. And we can definitely double check. I'm pretty sure that our GIS staff in Public Works make sure that any road closure that we post on our site is also sent over to Google, so that Google is aware that that road is closed and that they're not directing traffic through there thinking that that's an open road.
Yeah, I will say, so they do pick up our closures. And I don't think, because Redwood Lodge has a hard closure, that they wouldn't get folks going to Redwood Lodge and then have to turn around.
Every day.
Okay, I'll make a note of it. I would, that means they don't have to close or, and all the folks are like, oh, I'm just following these ways.
Well, they say that, or maybe it's close, but they think they can get past. But my point is that if the county roads are in such bad shape, why should there be out of residential, unnecessary, non-emergency? I don't feel like waiting on 17. Maybe I can take a shortcut off Laurel. Traffic.
Well, okay, I will say that, so the public roads are public roads and everybody has the right to use them. I'll just say that just out, right? So we've had a lot of requests like, oh, can you put up signs that say like neighborhood traffic only or residents only? And so, no, we can't do that. But we do communicate with Google. And if there's a hard closure, usually that does kind of like sort of change the algorithm. And so people don't get like lost trying to, via Google Maps or Waze. but it is a problem. I will say that we've had all over the county with, with the traffic on Highway 1 and so forth. You see now parallel routes and folks trying to make their way through neighborhoods just to save like 1 minute because Google Maps is telling them to do it. And we are in conversations with Google about how to change that, but they are very, very resistant to changing any of their algorithms in that way. And so it's an ongoing conversation. But good point.
Or they stop that by creating
the roads for residential only for neighborhoods in San Francisco, and those are public roads, so I just sort of.
Yeah. They actually have hard closures though, right? They actually put up. Yeah. So, good point. Something that we'll look into. Yeah.
Just really briefly, if you could please speak into the mic when you're asking your question. I am getting reports that it's hard to hear the in-person audience virtually as well. So people may have the same concerns as well.
So I understand you have issue with money and lots of roads and really appreciate it. At the beginning of the year, you had the president here, the governor, lots of photo opportunities, disaster, etc. What money did you actually get from the feds or the state to mitigate these issues?
So the good news is that with the federal disaster declarations, we're basically eligible to receive FEMA funds for really most, if not all, of these storm damage repair sites, which, as you can see, is about $140 million worth of repairs. Now, the federal government covers 75%, Cal OES, the California Office of Emergency Services, then does the next 12.5%. And so locally, we have to pay 12.5% of the end cost. There is one catch. The catch is that FEMA doesn't give us the money right away. And so in order to do all this work this summer, I don't think we've received any FEMA money to do that work. We have to borrow the money, and we do have to pay the interest on it. We wanted to do that because we can't leave 220 storm damage sites out there unrepaired. These are your lifeline to and from your home. We understand that. And we want to get them fixed as fast as possible. And one thing we really did differently in this round of repairs from the 2016-17 storms is we processed as much as possible with emergency permits, which, I can't speak to the exact difference in time, but basically it's a matter of months versus years as far as getting the permits to actually do the road work. So that's why we've actually made so much progress so quickly. That's the positive side. The negative side is we do have to pay interest on the money that we pull out right now to do the repairs. That we will receive. As I said, the number that we'll get from the federal government is 75% of the total cost of repairs. From the state government, 12.5%.
So to be clear, or to expand if you want specifics, right? So Steve had a number between the two storms. It was 120 million and 140 million in damages. The federal government pays 75% of that. That's $180 million that the federal government has given the county, or is giving the county, or will give the county in the last 6 years. That's $30 million a year in federal dollars coming in to repair our rural road network. So it's not an insignificant amount of money. In addition to that, those dollars, as the supervisor said, that will come in different phases. The state did give the county of Santa Cruz about $7.5 million as a loan for some of the costs that we would usually have to wait for FEMA reimbursement on. So our state legislators worked hard to get us some quick money to address some of the immediate monies that went out the door in those first disaster days in response in clearing roads and ditches. So there has been a significant amount. In addition to that, FEMA has allocated more money for individual assistance to the residents of Santa Cruz County than any other county in the state for both disasters individually and collectively. So it's not like there isn't money coming in. Is it enough? No, it's not enough, right? The damage, if anybody has gone through a FEMA reimbursement process, it's not enough money, but there is money coming in. So just to be clear on some of those numbers.
With the $7 trillion deficit, are we guaranteed to get that money, even though we have the loans up front? Did they guarantee that we're getting the money eventually to pay off these loans that we're taking out?
I mean, I think the best way to answer that, right, is that when the federal government is functioning well, hopefully they
So never?
fund their obligations. We are experiencing different challenges in the FEMA reimbursement process between CZU, between COVID, and we would expect between these disasters. So FEMA is moving their target in real time as to what they will pay or will not pay. We've got $8.5 million, $9 million in obligated funds that we spent to clear hazardous trees in the CZU burn scar. And FEMA is fighting on whether or not they're going to pay that claim, that project, for a host of reasons that I won't get into.
So I live on Schultes Road, and I know, Manu, you said that you had ridden up and seen the sinkhole at mile marker 0.054. That was where my husband fell through our road while he was walking our dogs. And I just want to know how much you inspect these roads, because that should not happen. I mean, he wasn't a car, it was a man walking our dogs, and he fell.
Yeah, we did hear of that incident. I'm sorry. Hopefully it didn't get too hurt. We do have aging infrastructure, and you want me to speak louder? Yeah, I can. I'm afraid of blowing this thing out. Can you give me, Shane, can you be, is this good?
It's
Okay.
working, but just going for the online audience. It's not projecting.
Yeah, you're
for
not
the room.
hearing me through any speakers. I'm doing this just for the folks on the computer. So yeah, that's fine.
If
I
you
just-
speak louder.
I just want to get a gauge on it. So we do inspect our culverts, and we're actually right in the middle of, so keep in mind, we have probably 6,500 culverts out there, 6,000 plus culverts. And varying sizes, right? 12, 24 inches, 36, I'm bigger. And they're all reaching the end of their useful life. And we're, a lot of these are metal culverts. We live in sort of a high salinity environment, right? And there's a lot of debris that comes through these culverts, and they're wearing out. And a lot of these were put in 50, 80 years ago. And so we're seeing a lot of them come to the end of their useful life kind of at the same time. We've been in the process for the last year doing an assessment of like all of these culverts. We're going to be bringing a report to the board to let the board know we have this much work to do. We're going to come in with a plan over how many ever years, the next 5 years, 10 years, to try and get these things replaced. I can say this, we can't replace them fast enough. And, we saw more culvert failures in 23 than we did in 2017. I think a lot of it was because, of the storms being so close together, and they just got overwhelmed with debris. And so these that were vulnerable, a lot of them started showing sinkholes. Some of them we just completely lost, right? And so, yes, we do inspect our roads. Schultes happens to be one of the older, kind of not the best roads in the county, as you guys know. So, yeah, but when we hear about that, we'll come out and put plates on it, and we'll make a plan for repair. So but good point.
Right? To date, that was 6 months ago.
And the sinkhole still remains.
So I just was in a meeting last week where the crew was talking about running up and putting a plate on that. And so if they haven't done it yet, expect it in the next week or so.
I'd like to review that residential side. I in the house, I read that here.
Twice in 2017 and in 2023. From what I've been told, a lot of the water that comes up from Schultes could be diverted so it doesn't come down the private road and down to our property. They spent a ton of money putting in a temporary bridge, which now is in the creek, and that lasted maybe 2 years. And even in front of our house, if you go down, if you look up at our house, everybody above the dirt is coming into our property. So we are in the process of probably losing our home. Also, if you drive in front of our house where they fixed it in 2019, there's a big dip. So my concern is they're going to come out and spend this money again to put another bridge up to fix the road. I unfortunately am probably going to be screwed because they're not going to do anything to fix the water that's coming into my property.
You live on the Royce property or?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And why is this reoccurring, I guess, is my concern. If the county's coming out and spending this money to fix the road that they did in 2019. Why are they coming out and having to do it again in 2023? Why are we facing the same water that's coming down our property that hasn't been diverted? And why are we putting in a new bridge? Why are we putting in another portion of Redwood Lodge that has collapsed in front of my home? And why am I in the process of losing my home?
I feel like this is a conversation we need to have offline. I mean, the dynamics in that area of the county from a hydrology standpoint and from a geology standpoint is incredible. I mean, it's it's like I said, it's many lifetimes of people's work to keep these roads alive. And so, but I feel like I should get your contact information. We have a larger discussion about the water that you're talking about. So maybe come see me afterwards.
Let me make another comment about that because I think it's important to recognize this. So as the question earlier about what are the FEMA dollars coming in, and as the supervisor said, by having a disaster, it lets us get access to hazard mitigation grant funding. One of the things that our office, OR3, is working with CDI on is a climate adaptation and vulnerability assessment of all of our county maintained road network, and to identify the vulnerable infrastructure, not just culverts, but all of our road network, and how to prioritize that work. Because what we really need to start to do is try and find grant dollars to address some of the larger systemic issues that you're talking about. Because FEMA repair only really allows you to repair in kind, right? It doesn't let you take Redwood Lodge Road, which was a rural logging road and became paved and became your residential road, and redesign and reconstruct the whole thing from start to finish, right? It doesn't allow us to do that. So we are putting, as Steve said in his presentation, we are fixing Highland one failure at a time. Eventually, maybe we'll have a retaining wall along the whole thing, but that'll take a long time, and that's not the most efficient way to do it. So what we are trying to do is build that database between the culvert inventory and this Caltrans grant that we have around climate adaptation and vulnerability to find the projects to go for the federal dollars to do the bigger mitigation projects.
Got a question over here, sir.
Thank you. So two questions. First of all, thank you guys for coming. I have to say your first presentation was terrifying, having just bought a house here. The first presentation was terrifying, having just bought a house here. Okay. So my seriously. So the first question is, so either it seems that we need to either get more money or shift money. Right. In the first presentation, there was a get more money question. The question is, how realistic is that? As in, like, does Santa Cruz have the worst roads in California? Like, are we like the only people who get less funding for the school and the state doesn't backfill? Like, what does that likelihood look like as the first question, which is probably the nicer question? The second question is, if you were to bucket the entire budget into things that could cause me to die and things that don't cause me to die, I would put like roads into things that could cause me to die. So the question is, what are we spending in the bucket of things that won't cause me to die that can be shifted to the things that cause me to die? And
I got the computer here, so hold on. Well, to your first question, what's the likelihood that we get the funding formula shifted? I think the matter is, well, how long is it going to take, right? The more years, the more likely it is. I was just at a retirement party for the former president of Palo Alto Medical Foundation here in Santa Cruz, who took on a similar fight to change a funding formula for our Medicare reimbursement rates in this county, to shift us from, considered a rural county to an urban county. And it took about a decade. It got done, but it can take a while. I hope that we can do it sooner than that. But it is, this is a formula that's been in place for 45 years, and no one has touched it, none of our state legislators, because it's working okay, right? We need to tell them it's freaking broken for us, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Maybe they'll come up with a fix that just changes the formula for our county. Maybe enough counties will hop on board and say it's a problem for us too, and we have to shift the whole thing. My personal observation is that I'd like to see more of this money that we get through state grants just be our money, so that we can make the decisions on how to triage these things as they come up. We can do it faster and with less bureaucracy applying for the grants. That takes a ton of our staff time, and then state staff deciding how to allocate those grants. The second question is, can we move money from one thing that's going to kill you to, or away from something that's not going to kill you to something that's going to kill you? This kind of gets back to the purpose of the county. That is, our job is to be the social safety net. So actually, I hate to break this to you, but most of the things we spend money on could kill someone. So we spend a lot of money just on mental health care and healthcare in general. In fact, it's probably the biggest section of our budget, even though we don't have a ton of local discretion over that money. A lot of it just flowing through the county from the state. But if we move money from the local money, which is often used to match or pull down more state money, off of healthcare and onto roads, someone might die. I mean, almost certainly would. The biggest thing we pay for with our local discretionary dollars is public safety, the sheriff's office, the county fire department, which works with CAL FIRE, the public defender, and the district attorney. So again, not a great option to pull money away from. And of course, when we start pulling money away from those departments, then they have less people to do the same job. Work quality suffers for them. We have more vacancies, and it's a downward spiral. So that's the problem, right? And it's taken me, I'm sorry, but this long to figure out we have no other option. So as hard as it's going to be to change the state funding formula, I don't see any obvious places to pull the money away from. Of course, everyone hates the managers. I suppose we could pull money away from, top paid managers, but then you don't have people working to get the grants that actually, pull down more money that we are reliant on today. So that's happy to continue the conversation, but as much as I can figure out for you right
You
now.
have another question over here, Cruz?
Hi, yes, I was wondering if your folks,
Can you speak up a little more for the audience here?
I was wondering if the county is looking at previous instances like the 2001 and 2008 economic collapse, when the state of California went into multiple counties, including Santa Cruz County, and pulled money out of banks. In our county, some of that money was supposed to be delegated to roads, and voters voted on that. And I remember talking with John Leopold about this a while back, and yeah, he confirmed that. And so my question is the county keeping score to make sure that when something like this happens, that the state is going to appropriately give this money back, especially, being in the position here where you're dealing with FEMA and you're paying interest? That if that money was properly gifted back, and, that could be in our banks and it could be collecting interest for us, even in CDs, you see, maybe we wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now. And also you could point out to them that we're all up on this hill here, whether it be fire or flood. If power goes out and we have all these roads in these conditions, we could all be trapped up here and killed. So that's something to point out to them, to try to incentivize them to help our community out.
Certainly. Okay.
So
I wasn't here in
Yeah,
2008.
I
but Steve
I think what you're talking
was.
about related to roads. So it's true that, we primarily fund our road maintenance through gas tax. And there was a time where it wasn't, because there was a time where the state was able to basically, so we get paid regular installments of gas tax monthly. That's what keeps our cash flow working and the road crew alive. There was a time when they basically didn't have to give you that money until the very end of the year. We would have to basically finance our entire program until April, and then they would pay us. But there was, I think in 2000, it was like 14 or 16 where Prop 1 passed and basically made it illegal to do that. And we haven't had that problem ever since. That's the only thing that's ringing a bell of what you just mentioned. Yeah, I can't recall any. Yeah, I'm not putting it together.
Yeah.
$30 billion in the hole. We had a $30 billion surplus.
Sure.
$30 billion in the hole with this whole Enron, MCI, WorldCom disaster and everything else that was going down. So that was that governor that made these, that had his negotiations with the energy companies. You see, he could have waited, I guess, and let the economy collapse, and then we would be fine. Unfortunately, it happened. But the state of California took money from many counties all throughout the state. I'm not sure if they gave that money back to the county of Santa Cruz. Maybe they didn't, and you should check into that.
They did. I talked to Doug before.
They did give it. Okay. Well,
All right, thanks. And I'm happy to discuss that further with the county budget manager to understand the exact dynamics of that situation.
We have a few hands in the front.
Hi, Becky Farley. I've lived here 28 years and I live up on Loma Prieta Way, which is Mount Bocce and Loma Prieta Way. You know how that is. Okay, there has been no road cleanup. There's only been patching pretty much the whole time I've been there, 28 years. It's just tremendous. Who else is on Bocce and Loma Prieta? Thank you very much. All right, there are literally waves in the road from the water going underneath. There are ripples in the pavement where the pavement just keeps sliding off the road. If you don't want to spend once it's gone, right? You need to start repairing that as it is. It is basically that the traffic's over the last 10 or 15 years is tenfold, by the way. And you can put those little things to mark traffic. I love that. Also, it is the only emergency exit for us right now. That's it. There's no Loma Prieta Road, which is the old one. That's all washed out. So it's the only way in and out. We have a lot of people up there. So I have a question. What is the priority to get on the list? How do I get on the list? And how do we rate it? I know the rate of traffic is helpful. The number of residents is helpful, but I would love you to put one of those things on there. I would love to see it because we see a lot of traffic there. Thank you. I had to put notes.
Great.
Thanks for your comments. It's fair.
Steve, do you want to talk a little bit about how we prioritize?
We do prioritize, sort of based on the amount of traffic, and we do also have, if there's safety concerns as well, other utility types of concerns, those raise a priority of a situation. But it sounds like you're more kind of interested in more kind of maintenance of the road surface. Yeah, we know it's bad. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've done projects up there with the neighbor. We've combined in with the neighbors and done work up there. Yeah. No, admittedly, it's one of the more difficult roads in the county. We recognize that. And it's well, so as Manu, illuminated on the screen earlier, our roads are in really bad shape. And to answer your question, we're probably in the bottom 10% of all the communities in California as far as condition of our roads. They're bad. We know that. And it's difficult for us it takes everything we have just to keep like Summit, SoCal San Jose, SoCal Drive Freedom. These are the big roads that carry 15,000 cars a day on, right? These are obviously the priorities, right? That said, we understand a lot of the mountain roads here are the only way to get in and out of communities. And so, we're committed to keeping roads open as best as we possibly can. But when it comes to like regular maintenance, like getting your road paved, that's going to take a large capital investment. I mean, that road has never really had any kind of improvements on it. So
it has, I mean, you literally are going up and down on waves. You have stuff falling off the edge. And you have, thank you, go ahead.
There's probably like 5 sections of like 15 feet where like literally the next guy drives up and all the shit falling back. Right. And like those get worse and worse.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, well, and I know we have been up there, but we can barely put in a week or two up there every single year. And so what I would say, the way to get on the list is, we've got a dispatch number you can call if you have a specific location that's really bad that you can direct us to, like a 100-foot section or something. Our website has all of this information. So the DPW website, it's got our dispatch number you can call. It's got an email you can send an email to.
There was a washout. You guys fixed just the washout thing.
20 feet below, the pavement is literally waving in 2 or 3 feet, and it's like, or well, not 2 or 3 feet, but at least a foot Okay, and they wouldn't have fixed that. And then 10 feet above it, there's a big dip. I mean, it's like,
So fair.
are you
So this
kidding?
gets back,
And
this
and
gets
a
back to what
month
the
after they fixed it, it eroded 3 feet of the brand new pavement because they didn't put the culvert. Anyway, just
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and this gets back to what the supervisor had sort of talked about, which was that we only get paid to do just the limits of what of the section of road that we lost. So it's hard for us to, but yeah, yeah.
I would be happy to fix you
Yeah.
better and see the road.
Fair. It's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
It's a
And-
date.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so we've worked with actually property owners up on some of the more remote roads in our county to partner on projects, and we have a lot of contractors that live in the areas up here. And so if, we've got folks who are doing work on county roads actually just to try and help themselves. And I know you all know that if you live up here, because the county, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you're about as far away from as you can get from the county center. And so, service for, sheriff's office and any other type of service that you get from the county is more difficult up in these areas. And so if you have any proposal, we're all ears. We do have limited resources and we can't be everywhere at once. And that's why we would be up there if we could. So use the contact information that's on our website and get in touch with me. And if you've got some things you want to talk about, certainly we want to hear about. The county website, you can just simply Google County of Santa Cruz Department of Public Works and it'll take you right to our website. All of our contact information, multiple ways to contact us.
And if you put your email down or some other contact on the sign-in sheets, we'll be sure to send out the website that way as well. As well as this whole presentation.
So I have a
Yeah.
specific question for Manon. I live up past back in Farley, and you showed the road charts showing from good to poor on Mount Bachi, Loma Prieta. We're not poor, we're failing. I mean, wouldn't you say the road is failing? How many people think we have a poor road versus a failing road on? I mean, isn't it failing?
It's in between poor and failing.
I mean, this winter it's gonna fail. That's why we're here, because we think our road is gonna fail this winter. And my question for you, Supervisor, is this: there's a whole bunch of towers up there that belong on the Santa Clara County side that are vital communications. And if our road fails, Mount Bachi, Loma Prieta Way, they won't be able to access those towers in case of emergency. And have communications, because those towers are, I think, are central to communication in Santa Clara County. Can't you work with Santa Clara County to see if you can have a joint agreement to get some funding from them to maintain access to their structures? You said Santa Clara County has more money than Santa Cruz County because they get more funding because they've got more urban population, as I understood you, right? So can't they use that to maintain the services for their urban population that is serviced by our road, which is dilapidating? And we think that road is going to collapse this year. We got a bunch of people here because we're afraid that our road is not going to be after if we have a rain like last year. So anyway,
that's a great suggestion. Dave, do you want to talk? So again, Dave Reed handles our emergency communication equipment and could speak to the ability to collaborate with another county. I mean, for emergency repairs.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for those of you who attended the event that the supervisor and the supervisor from Santa Clara and some of our Loma Prieta Community Foundation folks did in the summer, our office is coordinating closely with the Office of Emergency Management in Santa Clara County. So we have critical equipment on the Loma Prieta Mountain as well. All of our first responding radio equipment is up there. That's when, if you don't recall, when you had 2 feet of snow, we had the snowcat. We had to bring in the snow, basically a tracked snowcat to bring emergency fuel up to keep those towers in operation. So similar to what we've talked about, if the road fails in an acute location, to your point, we will fix that acute location so that we restore access. The challenge that you are bringing up, right, the larger conversation is the larger maintenance of the road. So I can certainly talk, and the supervisor can talk with his counterpart in Santa Clara County, and we can see if there's opportunities to approach it from that avenue. But certainly from a disaster emergency standpoint, we will reestablish connection quickly to make sure that we have access to that.
And you know, by way of example, when Bates Creek blew out Main Street in SoCal, 450 families had no way to get out to the grocery store, and we fixed it within, I think it was about 28 hours. So we can get crews out there to make sure that at a bare minimum, access is maintained.
Hi, so I'm another Bocce resident. And I just want to make one point that I've been super impressed with how quickly you guys have fixed the culverts and the slide outs. Super impressive. But please just take a ride on it. It's like a roller coaster. Like it just needs to be paved. It's one of those things where if you spend the $100,000 you were talking about versus the million, this is $1 million problem that's headed our way. If you guys don't pave Bocce, it's gonna break. You've done great to culvert it and fix the slides. Just pave the thing, you know, that's what it needs, right? So that's one thing. The second thing I wanted to ask about was the power lines. How do we get PG&E to underground these power lines? That's just another thing that's waiting to happen. Just how do we get on the list? I mean, we're like Fire Central. Like, why do we have power lines in the air? Didn't they announce a plan that they were going to underground those? How do we get on the radar to get underground lines?
So yes, we did take the money that had been built up in the power line undergrounding account here within our local area. And typically that money had been spent, you know, in the beach area to underground for scenic reasons. We did move that to a number of undergrounding projects throughout the county that would actually increase resilience, including a number of spots on SoCal San Jose Road. Now, I know I think PG&E has not been acting as quickly as we would like as far as moving that project forward. Director Wiesner has been working with them, I think, closest of any member of the county, and can comment on it.
Yeah, I mean, there is a larger PG&E underground project and process that they're going through, and they've already selected which roads in our county they're going to do, and so. Sure, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so PG&E has a larger program that they're undergrounding lines throughout the state. And they've already picked the roads in our county, and in others, I don't think any of the roads in this area got picked. So SoCal San Jose is part of the Rule 28 project, which I think that Mark just referred to. And so that's what we did, was we took the PG&E credits that we have to do undergrounding, which has traditionally been used for downtown beautification projects, and we've repurposed it to emergency routes. And so our next projects are on SoCal San Jose. It's segments of SoCal San Jose. What we did was we looked at the areas where there was the worst amount of tree fall during big events, and where the power went out the most. But you know, this is PG&E. I mean, this is like molasses, right? It's we're at least 3 to 5 years before we even get into the design on this. So but it's a big goal of ours. And I would say if we had one big goal for it, which we underground all of it, because that's such a critical route, and that's where a lot of the power outage.
I mean, the other thing that's important, because you lived it, right? That and to remind those of you who maybe just moved here and don't know, a lot of the power that supplies the summit comes from the Los Gatos circuit. So recently I rode my bike up from Lexington Reservoir, and I probably looked like a dork because I was staring at the power lines, and I was noticing all the new power poles. So most of that transmission line, and the reason it took so long to restore your power is there's so much of it on that side of the mountain, right? And that side of the hill in a different county. What we need to do, and what I want to work with in collaboration with the supervisor, is building some redundant circuit connections for the summit area under the idea that we have a critical emergency infrastructure that can't be at the very end of the transmission line that serves this community, right? Literally, Loma Prieta is the end of the circuit that comes from Los Gatos all the way up and out. So we need to build from some of the circuits that are coming up SoCal San Jose or elsewhere, some redundancy, so that hopefully, if we've got trees down on the Santa Clara side, you're not without power for weeks on it. So it's kind of a both end. We can't, we're never gonna get PG&E to underground everything that needs to be undergrounded. And as soon as they do, there'll be some giant earthquake that'll rupture everyone. So that's, that, you know, we need to be positive, but what we need to do is. I'll cut the, sorry, morbid. But what we do is build a redundancy of the circuit up here for you in particular. You, in my opinion, you suffered the worst from a power outage standpoint this past winter. The most time without power, and that's because yes, we got 2 feet of snow. We don't normally get snow, but because so much of your circuit is over there, and when Santa Clara and PG&E is prioritizing restoration of outage in their county, do you think they're prioritizing the 500 people that live on Old Santa Cruz Highway on the Santa Clara side? I mean, you know, they're trying to do the most they can, but they're stretched thin. So we need to work on that.
Okay.
I'm Charlene Swinter. I live on Redwood Lodge Road, mile post 1.47. I heard Dave what you said about climate adaptation and vulnerability work. I think that's really what everyone's talking about that we need. It's expensive to do these major road repairs. There's a lot of challenges. We've heard about that. What can the community do to work together to contribute to that work, to make it have an impact and be real? Is it money? Is it boots on the ground? What can we do to control our own destiny and not just be pointing the finger at you guys and asking for help? So critical, not just for our lives being saved. In the power situation, right? We can have generators, we can have batteries, we can sort of help ourselves. And we can't help ourselves with the roads. If the roads go out and they're blocked, we're going to die. Like, this is literally, you're hearing it from us, but how can we help you to make something happen?
I can start it, and if there's anything you want to add. Couple things. One, I can't give you the specifics, but you will have an opportunity in November of next year at the ballot box to address one of those issues. More information on that will be coming soon. I can't give you the details right now, but that opportunity will be important. The second thing we can do is recognize that for every grant dollar that we get, for every dollar that we spend on a grant, we can leverage, right? So those small pieces, those opportunities, as the supervisor said, to bring even modest income streams in from the state level that are secure, then we can leverage. So right now, what we're doing is we're competing with every other county for wildfire resilience funding, for climate change funding, all of those things. And as we've all talked about, we are under-resourced. And, you know, unfortunately, it's my job. We are, in my opinion, ground zero of climate change in California, right? I go to trainings, I go to emergency management trainings, and we are the most experienced in disaster response and disaster recovery of any of our peers in the Bay Area. We've been through more, Steve has been through more disasters than most any other county. So we need to work with our state legislators, as the supervisor has been doing, to try and reduce some of the competitive hurdles to some of those state level dollars, so that we can get those dollars in. We can use those as match to leverage for other things. So I think those are a couple places. I don't know if there's anything.
Sure. I mean, I would add that probably the best model for neighbors working together on projects is the Firewise neighborhood communities. When we've seen a radical expansion of those in our county within, I mean, obviously since the CZU fire. So there were 9 Firewise communities in 2020, and I think we have close to 50, if not more than 50 today. And that's fantastic. What it is basically a group of neighbors, and I'm sure many of you are part of your Firewise community, neighbors getting together. And first, just the fact that you are now talking to each other is great. Then evaluating the risks in your neighborhood and creating an action plan to address them. And once you have that plan, it's easier to get more state funding to augment it, or other public dollars. And of course, a lot of people are just spending money within their own Firewise communities or doing volunteer hours. So I think part of it is if we want to expand that to things like better management of water flow or preventative maintenance on roads, we can certainly do that. I think we need to have the projects identified for us and elevated for us to see that they're a problem, and then we can go after some of that state funding to actually get it addressed.
The other two other things, actually, to piggyback off what the supervisor said. So who lives on a private road or a long private driveway that serves more than one person? Okay, so your private driveway that serves more than one person or your private road is not FEMA protected, right? You are not FEMA eligible for the 75% of a county maintained road for damages that you sustain. So we worked really hard, our office worked really hard to collaborate with many San Lorenzo Valley residents who lived on longer private roads that were hammered in this last winter. And what they had to do is individually, they had to ask for FEMA individual assistance dollars, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and they all had to ask for it to make the repair to the road. One way to alleviate that headache, because I can promise you FEMA individual assistance is a headache, is to consider a CSA route. So if you become a county service area, you are then eligible for FEMA public assistance dollars. So it's kind of, in my opinion, a little bit of an insurance policy for folks that live on private, longer roads, where any catastrophic failure of that road that could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix would be very burdensome for you to repair. The other thing that we're looking at with our LAFCO partners, to expand on what the supervisor said, is looking at a CSA model for Firewise communities. Because what a CSA model allows you to do is you just need 51% of the road or the community to agree to do the thing, to assess yourself for property taxes, and everybody has to do it. So it's a little bit easier, as we know, with some of our neighbors, to get to 51% than to get to 75 or 80 or 100% buy-in. But what we're thinking about is seeing if we can apply that CSA model to Firewise communities so that you can raise some revenue yourselves at a modest rate, right? You can choose how much you assess yourself, and then you can use that money either for grant match or to do the work yourselves. And one of the grant match opportunities to share with you, it's still probably 2 years out. Our office applied for a Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant. We were eligible for that grant because we were subject to disaster. We're hopefully getting about $20 million into the county to do fuel reduction work in Firewise communities. Not all of them. I couldn't ask. The way we did it was to pick 6 discrete areas throughout the county that we called communities to try and bring those dollars in. But there will be more grant opportunities where if the Firewise communities are organized, as the supervisor said, you have a defined project list. Our office wants to work with the Fire Safe Council and find more dollars to bring into you. And the best way we can do that is to say, you as a community, as a Firewise community, you're willing to put in 50 grand. We're going to give you another 15. You're going to be able to do 100. That'll be, we want to leverage whatever grant dollars we can get in with your local dollars. So those are a couple different strategies that we're certainly looking at.
I think we got a couple more questions over here, and then I'm going to take some questions from the online audience.
Yeah, hi, my name is Greg Smith. I went down to the school as well. And my question is going back to what President Manu indicated, addressing the sort of longer term issue. And that is, well, we've lived here 32 years and we've kind of known about this trajectory for 32 years that the amount of funding is going down, the amount of cost going up, and that difference gets larger and larger, and now we're in this sort of a panic situation where we're trying to make up for that, and the only way we can do that is through disaster funding, and we have to have that disaster in order to get that. And I really appreciate the work you guys are doing because being stuck with a lot of probably like trying to get all this done with no funding at all, and then listening to us. Calling up and saying, what the hell, my roads are crap. Well, and we've seen minimal resurfacing, lots of pothole fixing. No, it really needs to be paid.
But my question, and thank you for regarding this information, that's good information. But my question really is, what can be done in the long term to rectify this pattern that we're in? You know, that's the real solution, right? We need to be able to fund the roads indefinitely, and it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And I know you mentioned something about petition. Is there more that can be done besides this?
So, I mean, the most tangible short-term solution is more local taxes. And we did that very successfully in 2016 with Measure D, right, which is a 0.5-cent sales tax for transportation. 30% of it is directly for local roads. And we've used that local money to go out and get matches in state dollars. And that's what's, I mean, incredible, you know, $100 million matches from the state. And that's what's paying for the giant highway project that you're seeing starting in Mid-County. So that is the near-term solution. And ma'am, I mean, 100 to 200,000, 100,000 cars use that road one way every day. We have to prioritize the highway as opposed to a road that has 500 trips a day. That's just the reality. I mean, there's a lot of taxpayer money. All $100,000, or sorry, of those 100,000 cars are also paying taxes too. So that's the easy solution is we tax ourselves more. But I think that ultimately we have to change these formulas because even a 0.5-cent sales tax, and granted you can get matching dollars, but produces in the unincorporated county, if you just look at the unincorporated area, about $9 million a year. And if you look at the entire county, about $20 million a year. But we have a bigger gap than that if we're going to address the fundamental problem. And that's why I'm focused on changing this property tax formula, because I simply do not see another way long-term to address these fundamental issues.
Hello. I think we all understand we're never going to have enough money to solve all the problems that we have. Okay, you're doing the best you can. I really appreciate it. However, I think that we also understand that preventative maintenance tends to be cheaper than emergency repairs. The trouble is, I saw one graph you presented that showed that the road states are going down because we don't have enough money even to do the preventative maintenance. Or as the Queen said to Alice, to stay where you are, you have to run as fast as you can. To get anywhere, you have to run ever so much faster. So my question is about prioritization. What are the rules for prioritization? Do they change from year to year? Is there a public list we can look at? Is there any way we can put preventative maintenance higher? Or do we just have to run as fast as we can to stay where we are?
Well, basically, the things that we look at for prioritization are how frequently the road is used, how many cars per day, and what state the road is in. And we try to find the sweet spot between a road where the maintenance dollars are going to do the most good for the most people with those projects for that year. We get more information all the time. We don't have a comprehensive list right now. Because we reevaluate every year at the beginning of the year, well, what's the status of these roads today, and where are the maintenance dollars going to do the most work?
So you're really telling us that you're never going to most of the community. The roads are horrible. You can't get much work. So we need a solution. Is the solution for us as a community to try to take control of the situation? Because it's coming there. Roads are going to be gone. We need power to step up and address it. When you're not doing it based on the math, you'll never fix it. You're looking at number of people, you will never fix it. Somebody said it for 40 years. Now, again, 40 years, now I need to throw this. What can we do? Can we be empowered as communities to put our own thing? Because for us, it's maintenance. You know, if I roof is leaking, I'm gonna fix the roof. If I don't, the whole house will fall.
Yeah. So first of all, yes, you can be empowered as your own community to fix your own road. And that's what Director Reed said is county service area, which is basically a road association but where everyone is actually locked in with a charge on their property taxes to fund that road. So you don't have to worry about going door to door and collecting a check every year to make sure everyone's contributing. You have that funding agreement in place. And at the same time, when we can do a survey of the road to figure out exactly what it needs, how much investment, where the weak spots are, and what the total cost of a project is. And then if there's a guaranteed revenue stream from the property taxes, we can bond against that money, do the project tomorrow, and your road's fixed. So that option is available to anyone that's interested. We've started looking at it for some of the larger roads like Glen Haven. And if any of you are interested, we'd be happy to work with you to get that into place.
What's the best first step?
Reach out to us and we'll look at the road, and Director Wiesner and I will talk to the community about how much interest there really is. We'll have to determine that, any way we can figure out that more than 50% of the area will actually be supportive. And then we've got to get some, minor funding together to do a study on what the road needs and move forward with creating the CSA.
Actually, in your best first step, is make sure your name is on the sign-in sheet, and you've designated maybe where you live so that the office can coordinate all the bocce and Loma Prieta Way folks who coordinated themselves to be here tonight.
How long would that take?
I would say two to 3 years between for.
To analyze the road.
Sure, go ahead.
So just real quick, I know this gets back to when a road is in a failed state. It really makes no sense for the county to invest its dollars in a failed road when we could take care of roads that are halfway decent shape and spread way further. And that's the science, right? And that's the curve that the supervisor. I say you're not going to help. We're hearing about it. And we do have so there is a process to do what they call a CSA subzone, which is to form a county service area on a road that the county is already responsible to maintain. And the process for that is what we would do is kind of, get a meeting together with maybe some leaders of the community who can play point. And we'd send our engineering staff out. We would look at like natural limits of what we want to do, say it's Loma Prieta Avenue from, Summit to Mount Box or whatever. And we'd say, okay, we're going to do a rough estimate of what it would take to grade this road out, put a 2-inch overlay on it and do some modest drainage improvements. And we'd say that's going to be a $5 million project or a $7 million project. And we would look at the number of parcels that front the road and also the number of parcels that use the road too, pass through traffic. And we could get sort of a rough gauge of what we think, is that we're talking about $400 a year for 30 years, or are we talking about $200 a year per parcel for 30 years? Basically, you would do a 30-year loan is what it would be. And there is some additional investment up front, and that report is an engineered report, that's where rubber starts meeting the pavement, where we're starting to invest real dollars. It costs about 30 grand to do these reports. You have the local engineering firms out here, and what they do is they fine-tune the engineering. They really look to see in today's dollars what that improvement would cost. There's a few different ways to do it. You can set up an improvement district too. This is how roads get widened and developed often. You develop a one-time district to do a one-time project, and everyone pays basically on their property taxes for 30 years for that. But what do you do after 30 years? No, what's great, actually, what that does is that brings a road to a PCI of 100, and it gives the county a lot more impetus to come up and spend very little dollars to keep maintaining that road into the future. That's what we do. And so right now, it doesn't make sense for the county to put a whole bunch of money into 100 feet of road, right? But if we got 3 miles, that's a brand new road. You definitely see some more, some more.
Like to sell us the county roads and
that's what you're talking about. Well, let's call it public-private partnership. Yeah.
Sir, I would love nothing more than to get you a fair funding formula from our own property taxes that you already pay. I don't have direct control over that formula, but we need to work with our state legislators to fix it. And I know it seems petty to ask you to sign a petition, but it will make a difference. And you can also contact your representatives directly.
Surveys from 1915 and were turned into U.S. maps.
Okay, in 1929. They have the network, 40 roads we're talking about, 40 miles of road. All right, I put in green because it sort of goes along with Supervisor District 1. All right. Now, if they can afford to do that in 1915, what the hell is the matter with county government that we can't maintain it in 1923? All you're providing tonight are great explanations, which have been solidified into excuses. And I don't think it's up to us to come up with reasons for how you get it. Either you get money or you reallocate. Somebody's going to die when there's a fire up here. I don't know. Maybe it'll be the people who didn't, whose medical benefits were cut back. Maybe it'll be the residents who can't get out because the roads are so crappy. The notion of checking for culverts, what a joke. I've walked my road. You people talk like you've never walked the road. Come on, Dave, you go for a nice bike ride around Lexington. That's a bunch of crap. You have disdain for a logging road, as if that's got something to do with what its use is today or how people rely on it. How it has to do with transporting people from west to east or east to west. I mean, it's like it's not up to us to give you solutions. It's up to us to demand that you solve a problem that they solved in 1916. And there, I've got 20 copies of this. So if other people who are interested in being offended by the incompetence of the Board of Supervisors, and I might add one other thing. The Board of Supervisors is not this gutless thing that you make it sound like. You don't have to toady to the county executive officer. You have the right to operate as both legislative and executive power. And that's more power, even in a crappy county like ours, than somebody's got as a congressman from a larger country, from a larger county. So hearing the excuses, that's not any good. We're done with excuses.
I completely understand, sir. The money has to come from somewhere. We're just trying to make sure that as few people die as possible every year. We're happy to have a discussion with you about your map and how the network of roads was built. We've got a couple of questions online. Let me see if I can get any sound here. Go ahead, Jamie. Can you just try speaking, Jamie, so I can confirm that it works?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay?
I can, yes, go ahead. So let's take the first question.
Okay, we'll begin with you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We live on Redwood Lodge at the 1.48 mile marker. And we've called the county, I don't know how many times. In fact, there are a couple of county road workers out there that actually took pictures of it and were really concerned about it. The culvert that runs the road work that you guys did, great job fixing everything at the 1.5 mile marker. But just before that, there's a culvert that goes underneath the entire width of Redwood Lodge with a creek. And the culvert is rusted out. It's washed out all around the culvert. There's a cave under there, literally as far back as the eye can see. The water doesn't come out through the culvert anymore. It comes out through the dirt around it. There's like a foot of dirt between the road surface and this big cave. That's literally the width of Redwood Lodge. If you guys try to do work down where the bridge was lost, your heavy equipment is probably going to break through. But we've been calling, we haven't gotten any response. We haven't heard anything out of the county. And it's going to go this winter. I mean, if we get serious rains again, Redwood Lodge is gone. The entire width of it, right there at the 1.48 mile mark. Are you guys going to do anything about it?
We've noted it. Well, if you
It's not on my list for current damage this year.
it's not on our list of current damage this year. If you put your email into the chat, we'll record it and get back to you.
We've emailed you guys. We've called you multiple times. We've had every neighbor call you guys. You've gotten multiple emails about it. Your own road workers took pictures of it and were really worried about it. And it was from the winter we had, from the 23 storms. So why it isn't on your list of damages, I don't know, because water is gushing out. It's not going through the culvert anymore. It's gushing out of the hillside next to the culvert.
All right. My analyst, Jamie Seahorn's reaching out to you, Kevin. We'll get your email and we'll begin the conversation about this location. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thanks. Hey, in the future, if you guys could alternate between the online and the in-person, it'd be really nice. So everybody online isn't waiting until the very end.
All right, I'm sorry, Kevin. Sulari Fernando.
Hi, we live on Schultes Road, and I've seen several projects on the Public Works website mentioning the different PM markers. Some of the ones mentioned in the presentation today were not listed there. So I was wondering, A, if there's a separate list of those. And the second question is, there appear to be like no details beyond the status of like construction or design. Is there any way to get information on like specific dates or timelines for these projects? Thank you.
Yeah, so we don't have the current list on our website. We're actually very close to publishing that in the next couple of weeks. So look for that. But I would say if you have a specific question about any of these projects, you can call. Very simply, just call the Public Works main number, which is 831-454-3160, and ask for you have some storm damage repair questions, and you'll get transferred over to the crew that's doing all the storm damage work, and you can ask questions about specific sites there.
You get that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else in the online audience that has a question? If you do, click the reactions button and raise hand. Mike P.
Hey, I actually posted this in the chat. I had a couple questions, kind of veering a little bit away from the storm damage roads, which I know are very important. So I'm not trying to take away from those. But my first question was, how are we going to hold PG&E accountable to get this done? I looked on the power outage map today, and we were literally the only area in this whole, like, I would say 500-mile radius, but that's too much. But that was out of power today, and it's going on so frequently, it's just a little bit ridiculous. So I'm just wondering what you guys are doing to hold them accountable to make our network more stable. That was question number one. Question number two was about safety. There's been some group chats around here about so I don't know if you're aware of this, but on every Friday afternoon, the middle schoolers from CT walk up to the Summit store. And there's been some discussions around vans, people pulling up and like asking kids questions and asking them about their sisters and stuff like that. So my question's around safety, like, and then I think this also goes along with speeding and some of your accidents. What can we do to get, a police presence or something up here? I haven't seen a cop. I've lived up here now for a year and a half. I haven't seen a cop once. Just, actually like patrolling, doing something. I've seen them drive by and go to Summit store, but that's about it. And then three, it's around the road, Summit and like sidewalks, and it's not safe for kids to walk up and down to that. They want to go to school, go visit a neighbor, go walk to the Summit store. It's just the sidewalks are in bad condition, and the safety of kids walking up and down, or even adults for that matter, riding a bike, walking, whatever it may be, just are not, it's not safe. It's not good. So I'm just wondering what if there's any plans to address that. If there isn't, what can we do to maybe get something on the books to try to work that in? Sorry, I know that was a lot of questions, so I'll pause there.
Sure. So to start at the top, as far as regulating PG&E, the California Public Utilities Commission is the one that directly regulates them. I'm happy to lend my voice to the need for better regulation because of all the power outages we've seen around here. But ultimately, I don't have direct regulatory authority over PG&E. Is there anything you want to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, just to add for context, right? So you are becoming the next region in the county where the EPSS, Enhanced Power Line Safety Shutoff Settings system is being rolled out. It's being rolled out. It started in the San Lorenzo Valley in 2022 between the months of May and October. The San Lorenzo Valley averaged an outage a day, an average of 2 to 4 hours out. They've improved that system over there, But what I am seeing from my lens in dealing with all of the county in this regard is that they're making improvements, but it's incremental. So what I will continue to do on behalf of the county in collaboration with each supervisor's office is push PG&E to give us the best system operation and the most granular system. So they're rolling it out everywhere. They are going to hold to this new technology with white knuckles, because it will keep you safer in a wildfire prone environment that we all live in. The problem is when your power is going out, when it just rained over the weekend, right? Or the power is going out over a giant swath of the summit, or in La Selva Beach. The power was out in La Selva Beach due to EPSS. They're along the coast, swamped in fog most of the time. So there's some issues with PG&E and how they're rolling this out. And so I'm in constant communication with them around that, because from my lens, if I can't communicate with you because the power is out, I can't keep you safe. So it's an inconvenience thing for you for sure. And I'm trying to use the lens of safety to get them to get us as granular an EPSS system as possible. So when the squirrel, the bird, the twig falls on the line, it's not putting out the entire summit, but it's putting out a smaller area. Yeah, that's what I mean. And, yeah, and I texted TJ while we were here, my PG&E contact, and I was like, why is the EPSS system on at all right now? And he's like, well, fuel, moisture, blah, you know, like they give us a reason, but we need to keep pushing, because that's the level of fidelity we need to have with them, is on a day-to-day basis. I need to hear from you through the supervisor's office that someone is getting an EPSS. I hear from the second district when Corralitos is out, a huge swath of Corralitos, or look at the Selva Beach. We need to just keep pushing them that this is an unacceptable rollout of a very important technology, right? We can't argue that it's an important technology with PG&E. They were going to use it, but we need it to be granular, and we need their response time to come way down.
All right, to the second question, which was safety. Yes, we can definitely have our Live Oak Community Resources Officer come up here during the specific times you described when school's getting out to have an increased safety presence in the immediate term. And then, of course, we are working to build rebuild the sheriff's substation on North Campus here, so that there is more permanent presence just visibly, so that deputies are coming up here during throughout their shifts. And there's also a place for sheriff's office volunteers to come up and take reports from the community like the one you just shared with me. But in the short term, we'll definitely have a deputy come up here. And the final question was about the sidewalk on Summit Road. I believe that is actually in our active transportation plan for the county. And I'm sure will also be highlighted again as an important safety measure, given the numerous collisions that we have seen on Summit Road. And so ultimately, we'll use those plans to apply for some state grants to build, improve the sidewalk along Summit Road. Steve, is there anything that you want to add on that?
Yeah, I would say that like throughout the rural areas of the county, we have asphalt paths similar to the one that you have here. They're historic, they most were put in the 60s and 70s, and they're all kind of sort of at the end of their life as well. And we've seen them reduce and work and all that. So we actually were working on a couple down in South County right now, and some of the big goal of ours actually is to try to look for grants to improve that, widen, get a better service on there. And in regards to the speeding, actually, it's something that's good to get this feedback from y'all. You're worried about speeding. It's good to know what time of the day you're worried about it. We've got CHP is primarily responsible for traffic enforcement throughout all the county roads. Believe it or not, CHP is not the sheriff. So we can raise it to their attention. We can try and ask them to do like increased patrols. Okay, and then we actually just purchased a couple of brand new radar feedback trailers that we have in public works. And we're creating a deployment plan. We'll bring it up for like a week and we'll put it in the spot. And just, supports people how fast I go and a little bit of that check for the driving the roads. Keep in mind, most people driving the roads, they all live there.
Nice try.
That's kind of what we need to hear. Like, it's school times or commute hours, that kind of stuff. So you can email me. There's just different ways to get us that kind of information, and I'll try to raise the attention to most DHP and see if we can get it.
Anything else, Todd?
Oh, the other thing I would add is we want to encourage the walking path to be on the east side of Summit Road. And then we can collaborate with our Santa Clara County partners on figuring that out. So I think we can.
All right, we've been going for 2 hours, so I'm going to bring the meeting to a close. I'll happy to stay around longer and talk one-on-one with any of you as our two directors here. Thank you everyone for coming out this evening in great numbers. Thank you for staying for 2 hours. And I hope to at least convey that we are doing everything we can to provide the best level of service for you with the resources that we have. Thank you.